they may skew it so it sounds nice on their gear.
The speakers or the headphone is an inch away from your eardrum, which is kind of cool.
You can move anywhere. You can move them around. You can move yourself around. So you could change.
So when we listen to music over these various accoutrements that reproduce recorded music, such as loudspeakers in a room, or in our case, headphones.
Mm-hmm.
People have different perspectives on what they're hearing because with speakers, you're in the audience, so to speak, and everything's coming from in front of you by X amount of meters, right, or feet, because the speakers are always in front of you somewhere, usually.
Well, they could be anywhere.
Yeah, but it'd be silly to have them to the sides. So usually the perspective is you're sitting at some distance, away from where the actual soundstage is occurring, or the soundstage that your brain is recreating. The event's occurring in front of you. Where headphones, obviously, it's on top of you. It's right on your friggin' ears. It's an inch or so away from your eardrum. So the acoustic perspective is different between the two, obviously. And and I think both have positives and negatives.
Tends to be how these things go.
Mm.
But if you think about how something's mic'd, typically you have mics relatively close to the instruments or the singer or whatever. And it's pretty unrealistic when you're at a venue, if you're attending a live event, to be standing next to the singer or the instruments. So the headphones kind of sort of put you in that space right next to the microphone. Because you don't really have anything else to get in the way. It's just a headphone on your head, and you're hearing what the mic heard. And it's a different perspective than what you would normally hear if you're in the audience. Where speakers, kind of, sort of, it's a little closer to that, because at least it's projected towards you from a distance. And in some cases, people have pretty large rooms, and it's actually a pretty considerable distance.
Well, I mean, that's the biggest difference is that obviously you can sit closer to speakers, right? Headphones, it's like, well, that's it.
Right.
Speakers, you can move anywhere. You can move them around. You can move yourself around. So you could change,
Not to mention the speakers take on the room acoustics that they're
too,
in,
yeah.
too. So you get this kind of recreation of a room where headphones, you do to an extent, but it's a tiny, tiny room because it's the space in between your
it's
ears,
earpads,
so to speak.
Volume, essentially.
Yeah, which
It's
isn't
very
much.
different.
Yeah.
And I guess that is pretty hard to recreate in headphones because you could add it in the music and the track and the mastering, but it's difficult because you're kind of interpreting how it's going to be played back then. You don't necessarily know what gear it's going to be played on, what volume you're going to listen at, and what this person wants to hear or whatever.
Well, it's really in the miking, if you think about it, because when they try to record like an orchestra playing, sure you can put mics on individual instruments, but that would be silly because you need a hell of a lot of mics. And to what end? Where they've got mics fanned out or wherever they put them above the stage and out, so that you actually do feel like there's some distance between you and this huge presentation. I mean, how do you record a 100-foot wide orchestra?
There's really not a lot of other ways.
You got to get at a distance.
Well, not only that, I mean, it's down to who's recording it, what they want it to sound like, How much of the room you do want to add. Maybe you don't want to add anything. You can like everything.
And what are they listening to it on? So what are they getting their reference from? Because if they have headphones that don't necessarily show them the space or speakers that don't show them the space properly, they may skew it so it sounds nice on their gear and it may sound worse on yours.
I remember back in the day, David Chesky at Chesky Records, he'd always do his own recordings, and he'd find these churches somewhere to go and do it in, where he'd purposely pick the space to have a certain sound, then figure out where he's going to put probably 2 microphones or binaural head, right? And then figure out where whoever's playing the music plays, and then get that acoustic. He's drawing from the acoustic in the space.
Yeah, that was all he was looking for, a specific room sound.
Yeah.
And if you listen to his recordings, they have completely different sounds, obviously, because they're in different rooms.
Yeah.
That's a way to do it.
He's got a new thing going on. I forgot what he's calling it. Audiophile Society? I don't know what he's calling it, but they got a new thing going, Chesky, with they're specifically doing recordings for headphone listening. So I should have got the name on it, but we'll put it up here at the bottom here, what it is. But there's a website for it. But anyway, he's carrying on with that whole idea where, you want to try to give you the ability to recreate the space, even though the speakers or the headphone is an inch away from your eardrum, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I guess,
You know?
yeah, if you know that you're making the recording from the beginning to be played back on headphones, then yeah, you could kind of tailor it
Set
more
it
to
up.
that, yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it is all about the miking, the microphone's placement arrangement, really, you know.
That's a big factor.
I mean, to think about the opposite effect where you shove a microphone in a piano, what's it going to sound like? Like a microphone shoved in a piano. There's no space there. It could be brutal.
Most people don't put their heads in pianos, so maybe they
Have
don't
you
know
ever
what that
done it
sounds
though?
like.
Yeah.
It's not.
Now
good
we have
anymore.
here. It gets pretty
Yeah.
loud pretty quick.
It's pretty loud.
Yeah, it's like, whoa, there's a lot of acoustic energy coming off those strings.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, surprising amount actually.
But it's
Depending-
curious. You don't see people typically miking really far away, like where you would be in the audience. Sometimes, but it's very uncommon to see someone mic it like that. Obviously, you get a lot of room noise there.
I know, like
You
in
hear all the
live,
environment.
live recordings, you see that where
Right.
they'll purposely throw mics facing their audience to mix that in with the blend, like
Yeah,
the
but
beginning and
that's
the
the
end.
purpose, right? The point
Yeah.
is to make it sound live.
Right.
And if it was perfectly mastered, recorded, and you had mics right next to the people, it wouldn't sound live.
Yeah.
There are a few recordings that are like, you know, you hear them and you're like, you think it's a studio recording, but then it's like, oh, actually, this was live. Like that happens sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I think they
You know.
mute the audience mics or
Yeah,
something.
maybe,
they,
yeah.
they figure out a way to keep it dull, to keep the audience noise down to
Yeah.
a minimum while the song's playing, right? And in the end, all of a sudden, they ramp like
Oh,
someone
yeah.
ramping up a volume control on a mixer. There's the audience all of a sudden, crickets and all, you know?
Yeah, well, you always have the option for artistic flair in that one.
Yeah.
And I guess that's a fickle thing because it depends very much on what music you listen to what is your preferred configuration. And you'll see people fighting over you saying speakers are the best. And of course, people saying headphones are the best. But it really depends on your goals.
Well, that's the thing, too. And I think the reason they have such strong biases is potentially because of what they listen to.
Yeah.
You know, oh, this is my favorite music, but I've been listening to it for 30 years on speakers, and I don't like it on headphones. Well, okay, then you'll need to find similar music that is recorded to play more toward that, you know, that playback method.
Well, I think like, especially with like electronic music where there are no mics, and then it's like, it's a whole different animal because like, it's just down to who's making the music,
Sounds.
what they want it to sound
The
like.
level
you
of each sound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes they put a little bit of whatever, various noises in their reverb and stuff like that, sorts of
Yeah.
things that give you a little bit more sense of space. And it's curious because it almost makes it work better on both platforms in that sense. It is more indifferent to how you play it back.
Yeah, it's a
In some
matter of
sense.
it's just relative volume of each instrument and how hard it's hitting, right? And you could that in a sense means your master volume or your volume control decides how you hear that. More regardless whether it's speakers or and of course the limitations of the system. You got
Yeah.
subs. What's the freak range of your room and with the speakers versus the headphone. Normally you'll get much more fuller frequency response out of a headphone with stuff like that than you will a two-channel system.
Yeah, if you want like full banging,
Fill a room.
Yeah,
You need some
to-
power.
Yeah,
Talking thousands of watts of subwoofer power to be able to recreate that, where you can do it on
Yeah.
your head with a few. So it is a different, two different ways of doing it. But yeah, it's true. Synthesized music tends to, I think, you see a lot of people getting headphones to play that because
Well,
they
they
can
tend to
do it
perform well.
for less money,
Yeah.
way less money than
It's
trying
very
to do
difficult to get that with two-channel.
it. Yeah,
You
need to
actually
spend
want
some-
rich bass.
That's
It's
some
oof.
bling. Yeah. So I mean, I think that explains it. The two perspectives. No one's ever experienced both because a lot of people just come from headphones and never really had a big two-channel system, and vice versa.
right.
We got a lot of guys that are, scaling down and going to headphones, or they want to be able to listen to music at night or something when they can't play their speakers for whatever reason. And so there are two different perspectives. And I think you just got to expect to potentially change up the music you're playing. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that overlaps and works well on both, but just keep in mind that not everything's going to work well in both formats.
Yeah, I guess I'm just used to switching between both. You know what to expect from, especially a pair of speakers that you've been using for 20 years or
Yeah,
whatever.
right.
You're like, well, I know what this is going to sound like. you
Yeah.
know?
And a lot of stuff sounds great. I mean, you listen to typical audio stuff like female vocals, Patricia Barber. It sounds
Yeah.
great on headphones. It's a beautiful, clear. I mean, primarily you're keying in on her vocals.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's not going to sound bad close up or far away. It's good. It's good recording. So yeah, it works all around, I guess, either way. It just depends on your goals.
Like everything.
and how much you want to spend.
How very insightful.
Everyone, don't forget that we're always looking for topics to talk about. And by all means, give us some suggestions. Our email is TOTL for top of the line, TOTL@abyssheadphones.com. If you want us to talk about something, chat it up. We'll see what we can do. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Take care.